What's up, Fiery 49 folks? So 235 disassembled here. I'm dressed different than what you're going to see in the video because shooting this a week or so after we initially tore the engine down. But this video is going to cover the initial tear down of the engine. This one in particular will be the top half, basically what was under the head. Me and the wife took off and enjoyed a 10-year wedding anniversary trip to a very tropical place. We left a very sunny and warm Kentucky that still felt like summer. Went south, and when we came back to fall in full force. So short sleeves in the video, but jacket in the garage here tonight. But that's okay. But we're starting to tear into this 235, finding some things that aren't great inside, but nothing that's like, hey, this thing is junk. But that's what we're getting into. So the following video, we snipped off some ramblings early on in the video about events we did in September. But as far as this engine itself, coming up, tear down, valve cover, valve train, getting the head off, and we'll get to that point and then cut this one off, and then we'll be digging into the bottom end here shortly. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for checking it out, and hope you find something you like interesting, or maybe learn something about the workings of the 235 Chevrolet. Now that it's on the stand here in the garage, started cleaning some grease and grime and stuff off, started running some numbers. Here's what we know about this engine. Something I'm very, very happy about. Ran the engine head casting number, which is right here. Can't see it in the camera. We'll throw a picture up. But basically, the good news is it ends at 848. Why 848? What does it mean? It means this is the best head as far as compression ratio goes out of that 235 engine. So we got lucky, and our engine has the heads don't flow great. It's not like this is some super high flow horsepower head, but it does have the smallest combustion chambers, which means it has the highest compression ratio. And that's basically how this engine gets 115 horse compared to the 85 the truck has currently. That's a good thing. We can do some other things to make the head better, but the good news is we've got the small combustion chambers. That fact alone means it bumps our compression ratio up from what we have currently. So we've got the good head that's hopefully in good shape and doesn't have any major cracks or anything that trashes it. But then, so that number was here. On the other side of the block, down here, just behind where the distributor lives, there's a serial number casting there. Looking at the number we have, starts with an F, so we know it's a Flint, Michigan engine, which was the most common. Let's see, based on the notes, it's Flint, Michigan. It was cast in June. If we go to the actual casting number, we know it came off of conveyor 4 and was cast on June 7th. So we've got a June 7th, 1957, 235, and it's an HE, which means basically the car it went to, just the Chevy Bel Air 235 with a heavy-duty clutch on a 3-speed, which matches what was behind it. And as far as we know, this engine was original with the car, which the numbers seem to indicate they all match up. So we've got hopefully a very good candidate here for a 235 that is very, very, very similar in looks to our current 235, minus some water pump and valley cover differences in the valve cover. But we'll bolt in, can replace our current 235. We'll save damage and save miles on that original engine. That's a Babbitt bearing engine. We'll run a insert bearing engine with more horsepower, rated at 115, but I'm guessing now, knowing the head we have, we probably can get 130 out of it without any drivability or major changes. So it's just some things in the head, better ignition, some other stuff. I think we can get 120 easy, maybe 130 out of it at the flywheel, not the wheels. But that gives us enough to change that rear end ratio. So we'll dive into this 235, and as we start taking it apart, we'll start from the outside looking in, and hopefully we don't find anything catastrophic that makes this a boat anchor. Hopefully this is a good candidate for a refresh or rebuild, whichever it needs. But get us that horsepower to get that speed up to 55 miles an hour, blazing speeds coming soon, hopefully. So a quick walk around, just there's a look at what we were talking about. There's the head casting number. You see that 848 there at the end. That means we got the small combustion chamber, which means the highest compression ratio available, which is a good thing. You can look in there. This is one of the exhaust ports. You can tell by the soot. There's the valve. And you can see that one's got some carbon and soot up, but it's pretty dry. Over here to the intake, you can see on the intakes, it splits side to side. We can't see the valves through that one. Back to the exhaust here. You can see the shine there in the back. So that's oil leaking through the valve stem seal, or the valve seals up in the cover. But overall looks good. No major cracks showing here on the outside. A little oily on that one. But outside looking in, we're looking pretty good so far. We'll start digging in and see what we find. Kind of close in here. We're going to just start at the top, work our way down. So valve cover, pretty simple on these old trucks. It's just a flat screwdriver. So let's dig one of those out. We'll see how tight this is. One of the big things you'll notice as we're looking at valve covers, the valve cover is one of the big giveaways. This is a newer 235 than what we have. Our old style has the low cap on it, and it actually has vents that are in the valve cover that just vent, but they're basically direct open air areas for things to get into the engine. So the newer valve cover is closed off and has a vented cap to keep dirt and contaminants from coming in. So that's an okay change. It does look different, but for longevity of the engine, taking care of it, it's okay. Four screws. Let's see if it just knocks off. It does. Lifts right off. And a little rusty on the inside, but it's been sitting not running for a while since we purchased it. Inside the head, there is some dirt and debris. Nothing horrible. Check all of these, make sure they're tight. Looks like the rocker arm shaft is okay. That all seems to be intact. These here, this is the adjustment screw. So the rocker arms, it's got a compression nut and slots here, so you can adjust to the push rods. But nothing looks horribly wrong or obvious right off the bat to the eye. The way all this gets lubricated, if you look right here, this oil channel, basically with the oil pump, by the time it feeds everything else, eventually comes it through the head here. This goes in, and all of these get lubricated by oil feeding in through here, squirting out through the shaft and out, and that's what lubricates the rocker arms against the valves and on the shaft itself. Our spark plugs we pulled them out I guess it's actually been probably a year or two ago when we first got the engine, looked inside, and they all looked fine. I doubt much has changed while the engine's been sitting inside, but just looking at the plugs back then and now, you can tell the plugs look fine. They're carboned up, but nothing overly rich, nothing crazy. Looks like a carbureted inline six should from the era. Nothing's oil fouled heavily or anything like that. So as far as the plugs, they were all looking pretty good on this engine. All right, so on this inline six, you can see the camshaft runs right along here. Distributor that would be in here driven off the camshaft. That's just a crankcase vent. Fuel pump has a pawl that goes in there, rides a cam lobe and works it. So the cam is driven. It's hard to see. I've got it out of frame, but up here on the front, cam driven off the crank, offset here. So this is our lifter valley in here. That's one of the other differences between the older and newer. The size and where that covers is different. But we're going to pop this off real quick. We've not had this off yet, but hope to look in here and find some good things. See exactly what we got going on. Hopefully no cam lobes wiped or nothing crazy like that. All right. We'll get this last bolt out and get our first look down here in the lifter valley. Looks pretty good behind. You can see it's gunky, but it's not horrible. Get our light here. Take a little closer look. Here's our oil feed. It goes up to here and feeds the rockers. I'm getting a light on now. Looks like probably somebody's put some goop on there, or maybe goop has formed around that. It may just be deposits. But this is the oil line. It comes down from the pump and the crank area up to here through that galley in the head and the block. But these all look decent. Nothing looks collapsed. You can see that lifter is up a little. Back up a little bit. We'll knock these rocker arm bolts out. Now, I've never had a 235 apart, so I'm not actually sure. I believe in what I've read that the oil feed is just a slit fit right there. Let's see if this comes out. It is. So you see there, oil feed, the whole rocker arm assembly. They all look fine. Pedestals are good. Nothing seems out of sorts on it. They all don't. Nothing seems to be coming apart. I think that's actually at least in okay shape. It wasn't running condition at least. Now, I'm not going to pull the push rod yet because we do want to keep those in position and marked so that anything they go back to that they have a mating surface with, they stay in with. I feel a little slop in the valves there. I don't know what the spec is on them, but there's probably a little somewhere in the valve guides. You can feel it in some of these here, but nothing's flopping around. Nothing feels horrible. So, all right, we'll stop here for a second. We'll take the girls to gymnastics, and we'll come back and dig into this a little more. Rocker arm shaft up, out of the way. We're going to pull our push rods now. For now, I've just got literally made a little sorting box. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 12 slits just to keep these in order because I do want these to go back if we reuse it in the rocker arms. I want these to go back on the rocker arms they came out of so that any wear patterns and such remain together and we don't cause problems by switching things up. All right, so got them out, got them sorted. We're going to keep them in order. Pretty neat packaging here. Amazon sends you one of these free with almost every order. So use what you got, recycle it, but doesn't have to be fancy. Just got to keep things where they need to be. With the push rods out, I wonder if we can get a lifter out. Oh, that one was really close. All right, going to see how this goes. Apparently, I do not have my larger set of thin-walled half-inch drive sockets here. They must be back at the shop. So I'm putting together what I've got here at the house, which isn't much. I'm going to see if I can break these loose. It may not be too bad. May get away with it here. Improper use of tools, but that one's a little tighter. All right, got our little punch card together here for our bolts. Theoretically, this head is ready to come off. Now, I have no idea if this head has been off since 1957. It may have been, it may not. I don't know the engines well enough to look at a head gasket seam or anything like that and be able to tell. So we're going to give it a few whacks with a dead blow hammer just to see if it loosens up. It sounds like it actually broke loose. So, definitely moving. Now, this will not be light. No, very heavy. Very old, very heavy. Lots of metal, not lots of cubic inches. First look inside, and looks pretty good. I'll pick the camera up for a second, and there you go. You can see how valve reliefs and some other stuff are there. Actually part of the block. So it looks like a running engine. This one here, oh boy. It may have been running. It probably was running. But I see some problems already. Now, nothing huge. I planned on probably replacing pistons anyway. Let me get the dirty gloves off so I can handle the camera. It may have been pulled running, but it may have been pulled running with some noise inside. Now, I haven't found what happened, but let's take a look down in here. Number one cylinder. Doesn't look too bad. Little oil, some carbon on it. 2. That's not horrible. Now, 3. There's some roughness and some spots in there that look like they shouldn't be there. Just based on the other pistons, I'm guessing that's not just in the carbon. That's actually pieces of the piston missing. So detonation, something got in there possibly. This one doesn't show quite as well, but I'm guessing some detonation or something on that one. Number 4 looks fine. 5 okay, but uh-oh, that's not good. That looks like a bolt or a screw got down inside the cylinder and got to hit a few times. Now, it's not beat to pieces. Looks like it hit a few times, and it looks like it scratched around a bit, but it didn't knock a hole in the piston. And it looks like maybe based on the color, maybe it was a brass screw, so a softer metal, but the fact it's not carboned over, I think I just found the reason why they pulled this engine. Looks like they dropped something down in it. Probably made some noise. They heard it, immediately shut it down. It's like, you know what? It's time for that V8 swap we're going to do. So that's what we got. All right, it is time to take a closer look. So a little later at night, less distractions, time to actually look closely at the engine. And rotation-wise, the engine moves freely. Nothing seems to be binding. I think the bottom end, at least without opening up yet, that seems like it's going to be okay. But we definitely have found some issues under the head with it popped apart. Now, don't get distracted by the corrosion, that kind of stuff. This is a 1957 engine, bound to have some corrosion. There's plenty of stuff that built up and collected in the low flow areas of the coolant and that kind of stuff. But the 2 big areas of concern, and I'm not really that concerned, but 2 things that were happening in this engine. Number 3 cylinder. Now we've got the light here. 1 and 2 looked fine, but 1, 2, 3. You can see the very, very rough texture, and there's actually a lot of the piston eroded away right here. There's a little lip there, but that piston's actually missing a lot of material right here, in addition to all these other pits. That's detonation. I have no idea why it was occurring in this piston, but basically, instead of what's happening is, instead of the air fuel mixture coming in and then the spark plug firing and igniting and getting this nice, uh, relatively slow expansion, controlled burn throughout the cylinder combustion chamber, uh, something was causing this to basically have a quick explosion in small areas. And that's just like instead of pushing the piston down, creating smooth power, it's like hitting it with a sharp hammer, and it literally starts chipping away at things. But so number three had a lot of detonation going on. Not sure why. A lot of times it could be poor timing, but you would think it'd be poor timing across the engine, and nothing else shows it. Um, Lean fuel mixtures, they can lean out, but typically on an inline six, especially the Chevys with the carb on the big manifold in the middle, 3 and 4 typically tend to be the richest because they're getting the shortest path of air fuel. Maybe there's something in the airflow that leaned it out, but that's no good. That piston's junk, which we'll put a whole piston set in it. But if we rotate around further, 4 was okay, 5 looks okay, and they all have wear. There's some, you can kind of see the corrosion here on the head gasket. Looks like some coolant was getting in the cylinders. A couple of the cylinders on the side walls here, you can tell where the corrosion here goes down, and water, if the engine sitting, there's some signs of the coolant leaking in, causing a little corrosion on the cylinder wall. But if we bring number 6 piston back to the top, right here, that's things inside inside the cylinder hitting the piston that shouldn't be there. Clearly, it was a Phillips headed screw of some type. No idea what exactly got done there, but you can clearly see the cross pattern there of a Phillips headed screw. And then you got, so the initial impact, there's threads, 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 shoulder hit, threads, shoulder hit, all there on the piston. I'm going to guess that sounded terrible, and this is probably why the engine was pulled, running when pulled, and going to a V8 conversion. But this is probably the noise or the event that led to the decision to make the V8 swap happen. So didn't destroy the engine. We didn't find any of the screw in the cylinder, so it either exited and got out through the valves and was exited out, or someone pulled the spark plug and was able to pull out through the spark plug hole, something. But there was nothing still in the cylinder. But it does look like, based on the other cylinders and the carbon, after this happened, the engine was ran very little. This isn't anything we cleaned off. There's a few, there's not even scratches from us. That's all those scratches and all that change of color is from the actual strike. We haven't cleaned any of that up. So it did not run at all or very long after that obstruction was in the cylinder. But those aren't deal breakers. Those are just things that happen. The detonation can be fixed with proper tune and ensuring all the other components are in good shape, which will require some precision measurements, that kind of stuff. But that piston's toast, but it's okay. We'll put a whole piston set in it, but we'll break off here for a second and take the camera to the bench and talk about the head a little bit. All right, looking at the head, it is flipped over, but if you took it and flipped it back this way, it would still correspond to what you were looking at on the block itself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of interest. The only one that really, the 2 that look bad, match up with the pistons and the cylinder bores there, but you can see that detonation that was occurring in 3 also has taken some material off the head in the combustion chamber around the valves. You can hopefully see with the light in the shadows, but see where material has been eroded away from that basically striking of that flame front, instead of having that slow expanding pressure burn, basically just having small explosions in concentrated areas of heat or something that led to that detonation, and it just erodes away that. It's not good that it was happening, but the valve itself Doesn't look burned up, at least visually on this side. And that head has plenty of meat there to we can smooth that out, get rid of any heat risers, and probably not have any problems with detonation with that. And of course, the head will have to be resurfaced anyway, which will get some of that. We'll do a valve job. I can tell some of the guides just by kind of pushing around. Some of the guides feel worn, so we'll do guides, seals, valve job, angles, seats, and the head be surfaced if no major flaws are found. Just a quick look, visual inspection. Haven't noticed any major cracks. Didn't seem to be warped. The intrusion of the coolant between there looked to be just light seepage around the gasket of the heads, but nothing looks horrible. But if you come down here on 6, you can see that the head mostly survived the attack of the screw, but right there and right there you can see some thread marks, and that's probably the I'm going to guess the head of the screw, or when the head broke off, the shaft of the screw drove in and hit a couple places there. Of course, the head being much harder than the pistons, it took a lot more to damage it, but it got in there and it made contact with both, and the piston took the worst of the damage, but the head's got a little cleanup to be done there too. So that's what we found. None of that is a death nail for the engine. It's not great to find it. It's not optimal, but it's also stuff that it wouldn't have mattered. We'd be replacing those parts and doing this stuff anyway. So I don't, to this point, still don't see any reason why this isn't a good candidate for a rebuild to replace our existing 1949 235. So that's where we're at. That's the top end, but it's time for bed and work tomorrow. So we're going to shut it down and we'll get to the bottom end on a different day. We'll see you, Fiery 49 fans. Take care.